Good day. This footage was filmed during the last day of my season, and I want to set expectations right up front. This isn't a polished step-by-step tutorial. This is a real, in-the-moment processing, and I'm using it to show the basic flow and decisions that happen in the field. Some of the audio did not come out great, and the lighting isn't ideal, so I'll talk you through what's happening as we go. I hang the deer a little differently than most people. Instead of cutting right behind the main tendon, I cut lower on the leg. That keeps the hooks out of my way when I skin it from below the joints, and if I accidentally cut through the main tendon later, the deer still stays hanging. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves, actually double gloves. That's mainly for protection. When you're processing a deer, especially in the field, small cuts can happen, and there's always a risk of infection. Same goes for hogs. Gloves give you a little margin of safety, especially if there is debris, ticks, or anything unexpected. Here, I'm showing you the reason why we're doing this at deer camp instead of at the house. Between the ticks, the lice, and the general mess, it's just easier to handle everything out here and keep the stuff out of my yard. I start by removing the head. Some people just cut it straight off, but I prefer to find the joint between the vertebrae and work it apart cleanly. That keeps bone dust out of the meat and makes everything easier later. Once you get through the vertebrae, all you gotta do is give it a little twist and cut any remaining tissue, and off she comes. For all my cuts on this deer, I'm using a replaceable blade knife. I like having a sharp edge the whole time without having to stop to sharpen a knife. I can just switch out blades. I'm making my first cuts higher up so I can skin down to the joints later instead of cutting through bone. I don't cut all the way around it right away. I want the hide to stay in put so it doesn't slide down while I'm opening him up. This is a carpet knife or a box blade. It has a curved carpet blade in it, and they're replaceable. They're very sharp and they work great. From here, I'm unzipping the hide and trying not to open up the body cavity. I'm taking it slow to avoid puncturing anything I don't want to. I try to avoid getting hair on the meat, but it happens. It's not pretty, but it's part of working in real conditions. And this right here is a good reminder about hand safety. See that knife? When things get slippery, it's real easy to nick yourself without even realizing it. That's another reason I wear gloves. And this is where I decide the knife doesn't need to be in my hand anymore. Before I go much further, I'm tying off the choline with a zip tie. That's probably more than some people do, but it helps keep things clean when everything comes out. Once it's tied off, I can cut it free without worrying about any contamination. I am removing the tail by finding the joint between the vertebrae instead of cutting through the bone. At this point, I cut a few small holes in the skin so I can get a good grip so I can pull the skin down cleanly. At this point, I cut the hide below the front leg joints and follow the white line down. Then I'll pull the hide past the joints so I can take the legs off at the joint. This is why I cut the head off at the beginning, so when I pull the hide, it comes off the neck clean. I'm using my fingers behind the blade as a guide so the knife stays shallow and I don't puncture any internal organs. I'm cutting around the colon so I can pull it back through the pelvis and keep everything clean. You can remove the internal organs all at once or in stages. I chose to do it in stages so I can examine the organs and see what kind of damage my ammo is doing. So far, all the organs look healthy. Once you remove the lower gut, you can see the diaphragm, as shown here. You can either remove the diaphragm with your bare hands by ripping it out or cutting it out with a knife. I end up cutting it out with a knife. Here I'm opening up the sternum so I can remove the upper organs. You can do this when you first open up the body cavity, or not at all, or like here when I'm doing it as a second stage so I can remove the organs and examine them. Alrighty, right where I'm pointing, that's the entry wound for a 300 Blackout 110 grain Hornady VMAX. It passed through the heart and exited out the other side right there where I'm pointing. Is at a slight angle. The deer was broadside. I'm not sure why it traveled quite like that, but bullets do a strange thing. Or maybe the shoulder was back a little bit further than what I thought when I shot. And now I'm removing the upper organs. And right now, here's another good reason why to wear gloves, because I'm messing around with his heart and there might be shrapnel from that bullet, or even possibly, you never know, inside of a deer you may come across somebody's broadhead that's shot from a previous year. So I firmly believe in wearing these gloves. Alright, here we're taking a better look at that entry wound from that Hornady VMAX. They have a tendency to open up pretty quick on entry, and you can see right there from that entry wound rib there and on the exit wound. Typically doesn't have a real good penetration with these, but it seemed like it did a pretty good job this time. From here, it's on to cooling and breaking everything down. Well guys, that about wraps this up. This video wasn't about doing it perfect. It was about doing it clean and learning as I go. As always, thank you for watching.